This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
UNICEF says the COVID pandemic has caused a sharp increase in teenage pregnancies and violence against children. The IMF sees 6% world growth but warns that developing nations are falling behind. And 57 migrants drown off the Libyan coast as deaths from desperate Mediterranean crossings reach 970 this year. Hello and a very warm welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Lindy Mtongana in Nairobi. And with me in studio is Uche Okoronkwo with a preview of your business news.
Thank you, Lindy. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. Yet another South African airline enters a form of business rescue. And Fintech boosts financial inclusion in Uganda. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, back to you, Lindy.
Thanks, Uche. Well, in your top story this evening, Tunisians woke up to new restrictions today, including a month-long nationwide curfew from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. and a ban on gatherings of more than 3 people in public spaces. The measures were announced late Monday after President Kais Saied dismissed the government and suspended parliament. Here's more from our Tunis correspondent, Adnan Chouachi.
The new restrictions come after clashes broke out on Monday in front of the Tunisian parliament where supporters of another party and others backing President Kais Saied gathered. These events follow Tunisian President Kais Saied's new presidential decree, under which he dismissed acting Interior Minister and Prime Minister Hisham Meshishi and National Defense Minister, as well as Civil Service Minister and Acting Justice Minister. The country's dismissed Prime Minister has agreed to hand over power to the new Premier, who will also be appointed by the President. President Kais Saied held a meeting with the presidents of the General Labour Union, the Confederation of Industry, Trade and Handicrafts, and the National Bar Association, as well as the National Union of Tunisian Women and the Union of Agricultural Fisheries. These 5 national organizations represent millions of professionals in different sectors.
On this occasion, I'm speaking to you and to the Tunisian people. Everyone must stay calm, do not respond to provocation, and ignore all the declarations and rumors spread by some individuals. I don't want a drop of blood to be shed. There is law, and law will be applied to everyone.
The Tunisian president accused several members of parliament as well as some business and political lobbies of misusing power to serve their own interests.
There are thieves who are hiding behind legal texts which are drafted for themselves. Yet I opted for patience and respected official positions and made warnings until I ran out of patience. These people have treated the revolution and the unprecedented revolutionary movement in Tunisia as plunder.
The president's actions came after a day of protests against the government and the biggest party in parliament, the moderate Islamist Ennahda, following a spike in COVID-19 cases and growing anger over chronic political dysfunction and economic slump. The Tunisian public opinion remains divided. Many citizens have shown support for the presidential decrees, while other people have criticized Saied's recent moves.
Kais Saied should have made these decisions before. It's better late than never. The situation is chaotic because the former rulers failed after 10 years in power. We've been impoverished and starved, and our purchasing power is very low.
We're defending the legitimacy against a coup d'etat. Kais Saied's move is certainly a coup. Any wise person cannot accept it. We do not care about power and we are not afraid of anyone.
The Tunisian General Labour Union hailed the social and popular protests held across the country. The UGTT urged the president to respect the constitution and ensure the continuity of the democratic process in Tunisia.
Prime Minister Hisham al-Shishi has officially resigned and declared that he will hand over power to the next premier, who will be appointed by the head of state. President Kais Saied said he will respect the rights and freedoms and the deadlines for the formation of a new government in the next few days. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Staying in North Africa, at least 57 people have drowned off the Libyan coast near the port city of Homs in the latest tragedy in the Mediterranean. Officials from the International Organization for Migration say the bodies have not yet been pulled out of the shipwreck. However, survivors reported that about 57 people had gone missing, among them 20 women and 2 children. Libya has become a preferred departure point for migrants who attempt to cross the Mediterranean in order to reach Europe. According to the UN Migration Agency, this year over 18,000 migrants have been intercepted in the Mediterranean and taken back to Libya.
At 11 p.m. on Sunday, a vessel left the Libyan port of Homs carrying at least 70 people. The boat ran into trouble, took on water, and subsequently sank. Local fishermen and the Libyan Coast Guard rescued 18 people from the water. Survivors told our staff, who regularly respond to these heart-wrenching scenes, that at least 57 people are missing, among them at least 20 women and 2 toddlers. Now, our staff in Libya provided emergency medical assistance, food, water, and comfort to the survivors, who are from Nigeria, Ghana, and the Gambia. This latest tragedy pushes the 2021 death toll on the central Mediterranean route to roughly 970 men, women, and children. This year has seen a rise in departures on the central Mediterranean migration route, an increase in the number of interceptions, and more arrivals.
Well, the International Monetary Fund has maintained its 6% global growth forecast for this year. It has upgraded its outlook for the United States and other wealthy economies, but has cut estimates for many developing countries struggling with surging COVID-19 infections. The IMF says that's mostly due to better access to vaccines and government spending in advanced economies. Poorer countries face difficulties on both fronts. The IMF raised its forecast for the United States to 7% growth this year and 4.9% next year. It cut its 2021 growth forecast for India by 3 percentage points to 9.5%, and also reduced its 2021 forecast for China by 0.3 of a percentage point, citing a scaling back of public investment. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is in Singapore, marking the start of his 3-nation Southeast Asia tour. Austin will also visit Vietnam and the Philippines. Our correspondent, Mira Liu, tells us more.
U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin today gave a 20-minute speech at the 40th IISS Fullerton Lecture. Now, IISS is the International Institute for Strategic Studies. It is an international think tank that hosts the annual Shangri-La Dialogue here in Singapore, where defense ministers around the world meet. But of course, due to the pandemic, that didn't happen for 2 years in a row. So Austin's speech is the first in-person address in Singapore by anyone in the U.S. administration since the pandemic began last year. It is also the first visit to Southeast Asia by a cabinet-level representative of the Biden administration. While Secretary Austin touched upon a range of subjects in his address, one theme that resonated throughout the speech was the talk of allies and friendship with partners in the region. Secretary Austin emphasized the importance of Southeast Asia to the current U.S. administration's Indo-Pacific strategy. However, audience in the room as well as in the region would need more convincing after 4 years of Trump presidency. During his address, he said that due to the pandemic, the United States and the Indo-Pacific region stand together at a hinge moment where there is a choice between the power of partnership and dangers of division. He highlighted 3 components which he said would be crucial to building back better post-pandemic. Of course, the elephant in the room is the US-China relationship. During the Q&A session, Justin recognized that though there will always be a competition with China on matters of technology, defense, and economics, he, as Secretary of Defense of the United States of America, is committed towards pursuing a constructive and stable relationship with China.
Well, top U.S. officials continue their efforts to develop diplomatic and military ties in Asia. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in India on Tuesday. He is the third senior U.S. official to visit India this year. Ravinder Bauer reports from Delhi.
Well, this is U.S. Secretary of State's first visit to India after assuming office. This visit begins on Tuesday later in the evening, and most of the official meetings have been lined up for Wednesday. It comes just a few weeks after Foreign Minister Mr. S. Jaishankar's visit to the United States. Secretary Blinken has met Mr. Jaishankar 3 times previously. The External Affairs Ministry of India has said that this visit is an opportunity to continue the high-level bilateral dialogue and bolster India-US global strategic partnership. The ministry also said in a statement that both sides will review the robust and multifaceted India-US bilateral relations and potential for consolidating them further. Although ahead of Blinken's first trip as Secretary of State, the State Department said he will discuss India's human rights record as well as religion-based citizenship law that the Modi government enacted 2 years ago that Muslims see as discriminatory. Reports in the local media suggest that India is proud of its pluralistic traditions and happy to discuss the issue with the US Secretary of State. The agenda of the talks will be featuring around the evolving situation in Afghanistan, boosting Indo-Pacific engagement and ways to enhance COVID-19 response efforts, among others. The focus will also be on increasing trade ties and investment ties, and also to look at opportunities in the field of health, education and digital domains. Ravinder Baba, CGTN, Delhi.
The United Nations Children's Fund has warned that the COVID-19 pandemic has caused a sharp increase in anxiety, teenage pregnancies and violence against children. UNICEF says the collapse of livelihoods and rising poverty levels are major contributors to the situation, even among children who are not on an academic break.
Education and safety of friends and food are being replaced by anxiety, violence and teenage pregnancy. So if we look at one country, Uganda, we've seen a 20% spike in the last 15 months in teen pregnancies, or in pregnancies of 10 to 24-year-old girls who were seeking antenatal care. Across the globe in all continents, we're seeing child helplines, a good precursor to understanding kids who are reporting violence, seeing often triple-digit increases. At least a third of the world's children, remote learning is just not an option. We're not talking about too much time for children on screens. They don't have access to screens. Again, in East Asia and the Pacific, 80 million children had no access whatsoever to any remote learning. If you go back to Eastern and Southern Africa, Uganda, children there have passed the 300 days out of school. Home internet connectivity, the lowest on the planet, is about 0.3%.
Well, let's go to South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal province now, where environmental authorities are conducting investigations into a chemical spill from a factory that was set alight during recent unrest. The plant, which housed agricultural chemicals, was situated close to residences in a light industrial area. Now, as Julie Shire reports, toxic substances released from the plant have polluted a nearby estuary, upsetting the ecosystem and killing fish and other marine creatures in the process.
It was an unfortunate turn of events when the Indian-owned UPL chemical factory was set alight by angry looters. The fire burned for 10 days, damaging the surrounding ecosystem.
It is a warehouse that keeps agrochemicals. It supplies a lot of manufacturers of herbicides and pesticides and fungicides and so on. The amount of chemicals that had already reached the stream, the river, the estuary and the sea were already so much in such a way that it is going to take some time to deal with all of that.
Authorities moved quickly to close off nearby beaches as dead fish surfaced by Durban's north coast.
In the lagoon, there was a large number of tilapia dead, and we did see them collecting on the weekend all the fish, as well as crayfish as well. I believe that certain chemicals affect certain fish more, so it has ended up with tilapia dying that were very prevalent in the rivers and the estuary.
The plant's proximity to residences, businesses and the Umhlanga Lagoon Nature Reserve, which is a protected area, is being questioned. It also didn't have the necessary clearances to be situated here.
There's quite a lot of lessons that are to be learned here in terms of how we deal with our land use, where do we put what, light industries and so on and so on.
Air, water and soil samples are being vigorously tested to determine the extent of the contamination.
We understand that herbicides did go out in the fire as well, and that could affect vegetation, so it's not only human health, but it's also vegetation. It's possible that sugarcane could end up with the herbicides, and the farmers could have found that the growth of sugarcane is affected further down the line.
The Umhlanga area is popular among locals and attracts many tourists too. Following the chemical pollution, it is in danger of losing its blue flag status as one of the better managed beaches along the KwaZulu-Natal coastline. Authorities will be eager to get investigations wrapped up quickly so the area can be fully reopened. Julie Shara, CGTN, Durban, South Africa.
Well, let's take a short break now. Here's what's still ahead on Africa Live. Coming up, the UN says thousands have been displaced by clashes in South Sudan's western Equatoria. And the remains of a military vessel and a funeral complex uncovered by an Egyptian-French archaeological team. Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Johannesburg, Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice. Let's now head to South Sudan, where the UN peacekeeping mission says a huge number of residents of Greater Tambura in western Equatoria state have been displaced following recent clashes. The UN is also calling for efforts to reduce tensions that have been rising in the state. Here's CGTN's Daniel Arabmoy with more.
In the recent intercommunal clashes in Greater Tambura, thousands of residents were left homeless, with many seeking refuge at a temporary base of the UN peacekeeping mission.
Due to the size of the base there, they were relocated into the former county support base site that was in Tambura. It is very close to the temporary operating base we have, and they're now being sheltered there and will be registered, and also we are expected to receive some humanitarian support in that base. That brings to about 4 the number of IDP sites in Tambura itself.
And the recent rains have worsened the situation for the displaced persons.
I am one of the people who have been displaced in the recent conflict. We are sheltering in very poor conditions and our children have no food. We are desperate. I plead to the armed attackers who are doing this to stop the violence so that we can live in peace and unity. Imagine with this rainy season, where are we going to shelter with our children? They have looted and burned all the health centers. Where are we going to get medicine for us and our children? Some of them are already sick.
Despite an existing peace agreement that was signed in September 2018, between warring factions in South Sudan, violence continues in parts of the country.
The scale of destruction has been immense. We are trying to contain that, and as I said, working with the government and with the local authorities, with the local security agencies and partners to try and contain this and make sure that it stops. It is extremely heartbreaking to see so much destruction and so many people who were looking forward to the peace that was brought by the signing of the revitalized peace agreement, and also the rollout of the revitalized transitional government of national unity at state level. They were looking forward to embracing and benefiting from the peace dividends, and this political, the politically instigated intercommunal violence is now threatening that.
Militias allied to former warring factions have been blamed for rising insecurity in the region, often along ethnic lines. Ambushes, revenge attacks, and the theft of livestock, locally known as cattle rustling, is rampant in the region. The United Nations is calling for a long-term solution to the problem. Daniel Arap Moy, CGTN.
The remains of a military vessel and a funerary complex have been uncovered by an Egyptian-French archaeological team. The discovery was made in the sunken city of Heraklion, which is today located in Abu Qir Bay, that sits about 2.5 kilometers off the Egyptian coast. Yasser Hakim has more on this historic find.
The last few years saw a plethora of discoveries on different sites in Egypt. But this one in Alexandria is different. It's underwater. A 13-meter vessel sank after being damaged by huge blocks of the famed Temple of Amun, when it was totally destroyed during a strong earthquake in the 2nd century BC. The ship was detected under nearly 5 meters of hard clay, mingled with remains of the temple. Experts say finding lost treasures underwater is not an easy feat.
The toughest archaeological work is not in the desert but underwater. You have limited time and capabilities to work underwater. You have to work the proper sophisticated equipment for underwater excavations. For example, there is a coffin of King Menkaura near the Spanish coast. It is still there, but very expensive to extract because it is so deep under the ocean. We need a lot of heavy equipment underwater that is either not available or very costly.
Finds of a rapid ship of this age remains extremely rare. Hellenistic ships of this type were completely unknown to archaeologists, and this discovery could answer a lot of questions.
We are always very happy to discover a sunken monument that dates back to ancient Egyptian times because it is very rare, especially that we found a lot of artifacts inside the ship, like statues and granite paintings. All the pieces are made from material that can withstand salt water for a very long time. The latest discovery will uncover a lot of clues because this vessel is not a traditional trading ship, nor just a military one, but a vessel that serves the temple.
Archaeologists believe the latest discovery and the technology used by the Egyptian-French mission will open the door for more underwater excavations in the near future. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
And let's turn to news from India now. Heavy monsoon rains continue to batter western parts of the country, forcing rescue operations to be called off. A landslide hit a village 180 kilometers southeast of Mumbai. More than 50 people are confirmed dead. Subhash Sharma has more.
Unprecedented flooding due to days of heavy rainfall in Maharashtra state has caused massive destruction to life and property. The rains triggered several landslides across India, including one in Talai village in Raigad district, where scores of houses were washed away and many people are still feared trapped in the debris. Horrified villagers and relatives are coming to terms with the sheer scale of the disaster.
My wife was swept away in the landslide. She was running to escape, but the gush of water caught up with her from behind, and she was swept downhill. I have lost my entire family in this.
A part of this hill gave way due to heavy rains. Water came gushing down with the mud, and it dragged away everything downhill that came in its wake.
This is what is left of about 35 houses in the small village. As bodies were recovered, the families appeared inconsolable. Rescue efforts were undertaken on a massive scale by the National Disaster Relief Force and the civic authorities. But their work was hampered by intermittent heavy rains, and on Monday, officials brought the search operations to an end.
Since the houses have been buried under about 7 to 8 feet of sludge, it's proving difficult for the GCB machine to work as it gets stuck in the mud. Wherever it's possible, our rescue teams are at work. They're getting stuck in 2 to 2.5 feet of sludge. In spite of that, wherever it's possible to move, we are looking for bodies and we will recover them.
The heavy rains across India have washed away parts of highways. Many rivers are flowing well above their danger mark, and landslides are on the rise. Climate experts in India have warned about new extremes in rainfall as a result of global warming.
Of course, there are natural related reasons for this, like cutting of trees and fluctuation in weather patterns. The frequency of natural disasters has increased all over. Floods have also increased.
This past week alone has seen flooding events around the world, raising global concern. With devastation like this in various parts of India and the world in the past week, perhaps it is time to take heed of what the climate scientists are saying, that these global floods are a warning sign to take immediate action in the fight against climate change. Subhash Sharma for CGTN in Talai village, Maharashtra.
Well, meanwhile, in China's Henan province, parts of the city of Xinjiang remain submerged in floodwater after days of heavy rain. Rescuers say they've been surviving on instant noodles and dry snacks. Some residents have been pitching in by offering meals. CGTN's Senjuan has the story.
It's still a challenge to get warm meals to the front line. This group of volunteers use their own truck to get around the city. They are all residents of Xinjiang. One of them, Li Zhiqian, is a truck driver. Instant ramen has become staple food for most rescuers, but even that is facing a shortage in some areas. It's their second day out on the streets in Xinjiang. Lunch consists of noodles, chicken drumsticks, and mixed veggies. The volunteers say they met at a residential compound when offering help to distribute donations. They form a group right after that. People who come for food not only include rescuers, but also local residents. Once lunch is over, the group heads back to prepare dinner. They get some ingredients along the way. It still isn't easy to get fresh supplies here. But they've been meeting people who want to pitch in along the way. Dinner prep takes place at one volunteer's home. Li is the chef. The entree is a local dish of braised vegetables. They pack some buns to go with it. The entire preparation takes them 3 hours. One of the volunteers had spoken to a brother on the phone. Their home had already been submerged in flood water. Their dog couldn't be rescued in time. But the news didn't stop her from joining the dinner drive.
we're on our way to deliver this warm dinner to the frontline rescue teams as well as volunteers at the city of Xinxiang. So these are the people behind the volunteers. This is a group of volunteers formed by Xinxiang local residents. After days of surviving on ramen noodles and also bottles of water, they hope the frontline rescue teams are able to enjoy a warm meal.
We at least have gathered to do something. The rescuers drove miles to come here and save us. It would be a shame to just sit at home. You wouldn't be able to forgive yourself.
They bring about 200 packed meals for dinner. Lee says some of the rescuers have cracks on their lips after days of only consuming instant ramen.
They came from across the country, including provinces like Gansu, Sichuan and Jiangsu. You save our home, we'll protect your stomach.
One rescue team asked for 100 packed meals for their volunteers. They rushed to meet the request.
We feel proud being able to do something for them. This is how we feel. We have done something for our country and also for Xinxiang.
It's quite challenging to get fresh supplies. We weren't able to cover everyone today. We didn't cook enough. We will keep it going for tomorrow.
Lee says he will continue what he's doing so that frontline volunteers can have some warmth after saving his home in the cold and wet. Chen Ziyuan, CGTN, Xinxiang, Henan Province.
Well, let's turn to your business news now with Uche.
Thank you, Lindy. And coming up on Africa Live Biz. Yet another South African airline enters a form of business rescue. And Fintech boosts financial inclusion in Uganda.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
And we start off in South Africa. One of the country's low-cost airlines, Mango, has become the latest carrier to be placed into business rescue. Now, the airline is a subsidiary of South African Airways, which of course just emerged from its own business rescue process in April. Here's CGTN Sumitra Naidu with the details.
3 labour unions approached the courts asking them to place Mango into business rescue. The airline has been struggling financially and was almost forced to shut down last month. After a last-minute scramble, Mango managed to raise enough cash to pay its overdue rental to the Airports Company of South Africa.
So we drafted a letter to the DPE, the SA board, the Mango board, for them, for us to work collaboratively in this business rescue, file together, and make sure that it's a collaborative effort. And they did not respond to our letter.
Mango ran successfully for years, but COVID and the financial woes of its parent, SAA, began to weigh heavily. SAA has been depending on government bailouts for decades. It just completed a 17-month business rescue process with another $656 million from the state. $180,000 was meant for SAA subsidiaries, but this urgently needed disbursement has been delayed.
What's more distressing to us is that it seems like you'd be aware that in the plan they had indicated that Mango would receive 819 million, right, in order to start the business and push some capital into there, and they're holding on to that money. We believe that in business rescue we're able to restructure. That money should come into play.
Business rescue could lead to restructuring, or in a worst case scenario, the airline could be closed. But the unions felt they were left with no choice. Workers haven't been paid June salaries and they're unlikely to get paid for July.
Effectively, the staff at Mango have been working for free for the whole month of July. But there's been massive sacrifices by Mango staff over the last 16 months since the beginning of lockdown. Many months last year we were down 70%, 80% of salaries. So on average, Mango owes all the staff 6 months plus June salaries.
Mango has refused to comment thus far, but SAA's interim CEO, Thomas Kakalu, confirmed to local media that the business rescue process is proceeding. Sumitra Nadu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Meanwhile, businesses in regions of South Africa most affected by the recent wave of looting are now counting the costs of the damage. Hundreds of stores and factories were destroyed during the social unrest in the KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng provinces. Well, CGTN's Julie Shire tracked down a Chinese business caught up in the mayhem in the coastal city of Durban.
At least 40,000 businesses have been affected or destroyed by the worst violence to hit post-apartheid South Africa. Initial estimates put the damage at around $1 billion, with 150,000 job losses. Without help from government, many of these businesses may never open their doors again. Roy Chen's warehouse might be one of them. The smell of smoldered fabric hangs thick in Chen's looted factory on the outskirts of Durban. Visibly shaken, he treads carefully through the ruins of his once thriving blanket factory.
When I came through the place, I can't believe from my eyes. I can't believe this, we got nothing left. All is gone. All in my life I have is gone. I got nothing left at the moment. And really, I don't know what I'm going to do in the future, And I don't know how I'm going to start again.
Chen invested more than 10 years growing his business. He employed 100 people. Before the unrest, the factory produced over 2,000 blankets a day for the local market.
We try to create the job for the local people. And we try to grow up our business in South Africa. Think we can hire more people to work together with us, But like something happened like this, I don't know. I got no idea what I'm going to do in the future.
Chen estimates damages could be at least $4 million. He's unsure of how he will recover from this ordeal.
I'm scared to invest any more about the business in the future. I got no confidence about doing business in South Africa in the future, because for the business, we always thinking the long-term plan, But if the situation like that, we can't make the long-term business plan.
The country's industrial sector is starting to take stock of the damage. But for some, the loss of their entire livelihood may be too much to ever replace. Julie Shire, CGTN.
And still on aviation matters, Tunisia's national carrier has reported a 29.3% decline in revenues for the first half of 2021. This as the pandemic continues to take a toll on the airline industry amid restrictions imposed across the globe to curb its spread. Here's CGTN's Adnan Shaushi reporting from Tunis.
Transport revenues of Tunisia's national carrier Tunisair dropped to reach 183 million dinars, or approximately $65 million, according to data provided by the company on the Tunis Stock Exchange website. The decline in revenues is explained by the 42% drop in the number of passengers transported, from 579,000 late in June 2020 to 338,000 late in June 2021.
The decline in revenues is the result of the drop in the number of passengers and more than 10 years of financial difficulties. The financial situation of Tunisia Air is extremely difficult. The company needs urgent measures to be saved.
Tunisia has been facing a difficult financial time, and the situation has further been compounded by the COVID-19 downturn, which has battered the airline industry. Aviation experts have said that the carrier needs to lay off more than 2,000 employees to ease the financial burden. The layoff cost is estimated at $90 million.
The syndicate of Tunisia Air agreed to a layoff program in 2014 to release some 1,200 employees. The authorities want more layoffs without offering a concrete restructuring plan and solutions to the company's crisis.
Despite a lack of clarity on the post-COVID situation, many analysts maintain that Tunisia could benefit from the recovery of the sector after the end of the pandemic.
Tunis Air has a large network in Europe and in some parts of Africa. The national carrier needs to prepare for the post-COVID recovery in aviation. All the vaccinated people in the world will be tempted to travel. Tunis Air can't miss this opportunity to increase the number of flights, passengers and revenues.
According to the Tunis Stock Exchange, the number of flight hours decreased for charter flights from 675 hours in the first half of 2020 to 39 hours in June 2021.
The Transport Department announced that Tunis Air has abandoned unprofitable international routes this year. The company has also stopped serving some destinations in Africa and Europe following an unprecedented demand collapse due to the COVID-19 crisis. Adnan Shaweshi, CGTN, Tunis.
And over now to Uganda, where Fintech, which is the fusion of finance and technology, is now helping to boost financial inclusion in the East African nation. Now, as a key driver of growth in the region, Fintech has created an enabling environment that has opened up the financial sector's value chain and promoted efficiency gains. Here's CGTN's Leon Senyange reporting.
Money transfers, bill payments and even basic transactions, all now done with just a click. Digital payment in Uganda is booming. According to experts, it's the growth of local financial technology, also known as fintech, that is spurring the changes across the local financial ecosystem.
It wasn't uncommon to see bank queues running through from the banking halls down the street as people are waiting to pay for their school fees. All of that has now been digitized. Pay taxes. People are using mobile wallets to pay taxes or straight from their bank accounts. So the digitization of some of these services, which by the way was largely a fruit of the innovation of fintechs, has done a lot to enhance financial sector.
There are now over 180 registered fintech firms in Uganda offering technology-based finance solutions. The fintech revolution is flourishing because of the country's mobile phone penetration of over 28 million mobile connections. That trend has facilitated an increase in partnerships across different sectors.
They are enhancers for other sectors. They are value additions, because without the telecom, some fintechs cannot exist. Without the banking sector, some fintechs may not exist. Without the education, because some fintechs are building solutions for the education sector.
Many businesses and consumers are already taking advantage of the ability to use digital methods to buy and sell. The COVID-19 crisis has created opportunities to further expand the role of fintech through extending financial services to vulnerable groups. And while these technologies have allowed more money to move around, there are concerns about how safe one's money can be. That has called for proper regulation. Last year, Uganda approved the National Payment Systems Act, a regulatory framework on which firms can operate.
One of the things that law looks at is consumer protection, making sure consumers are protected, or if they're cheated, where do they go for redress? What reserves does a company have in case the entire company collapses? Where do people go for their money? Because, they have it on their phone, they don't really know where it is.
With the frantic pace of innovation in the fintech sector, the financial solutions are likely to pick up even more speed. Experts say that will provide high growth potential and opportunities for investment while also addressing the need for financial inclusion. Leon Sanyange, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Now, today is the second episode of our special series, Rising Star Cities. China's domestically developed Beidou navigation satellite system has been playing an important role in furthering the increased use of technology across several sectors. Well, our reporter Liu Xiaoxin paid a visit to a demonstration zone to understand how the system is stimulating growth across various industries.
This is an automotive-grade positioning unit, the latest generation Beidou high-precision positioning unit, which was recently unveiled in Changsha. It has been designed by BiNav, a leading manufacturer of GNSS receivers.
Our company focuses on a customer-centric corporate culture. We have an R&D team with strong innovation capabilities. Most of the vehicle driving test centers in China have already automated their examination process with the help of GNSS high-precision positioning. As a strategic partner of Duolun Technology, China's top vehicle driving test system integrator, we are helping thousands of drivers in China to undertake vehicle tests with our receivers.
Changsha has more than 100 companies like BiNav, which are using Beidou technologies for greater market reach. As one of the 3 national Beidou satellite navigation application demonstration zones, the city is planning to form the new Beidou 100 billion industrial cluster.
The R&D team of BiNav has been engaged in the construction of China Beidou satellite navigation system since 2002. With a powerful and experienced GNSS experts team and large-scale scenario verification on dynamic driver testing vehicles, BiNav has successfully developed the high-precision GNSS baseband AZEC Alita and the RFIC Ripley, which have been integrated in A1 and C1 products.
The expert also says that the country's satellite industry has made it 20% annual growth since 2012. BDS contributes about 80% of it. The system has also generated tens of billions of dollars, countless high-paying jobs, and stimulated economic growth in commercial industries.
With the completion of the Beidou 3 system, the total output value of China's satellite navigation and location services industry crossed 400 billion yuan last year, up 6.1% from the level in 2019. In the next step, Changsha will accelerate the cultivation of Beidou Plus application scenarios for the construction of a new smart city, promote the large-scale commercial use of Beidou Plus pilot demonstration base services, and build a national demonstration base for the application of Beidou technology and industrial development.
With constant improvements in the Beidou functions, Changsha will have much more to offer in the future. Liu Zhaoqin, CGTN, Changsha.
And that's all for now on Africa Live Biz. But coming up later on Global Business Africa, we'll bring you the IMF's World Economic Outlook for this year. Of course, all of that coming up top of the hour. For now, we'll toss it to a break. My colleague Lindy will be back.
Africa Live. Find your voice.